The war had already outlived empires. 312 years of constant, grinding annihilation had reshaped the galaxy into something unrecognizable. Entire star systems, once vibrant with trade, culture, and life, had been reduced to silent debris fields drifting through cold space. Planets burned. Suns dimmed behind clouds of ash and wreckage. No one even remembered what peace felt like anymore. At the center of it all stood the Galactic Coalition, the last unified force of thousands of species, desperately holding the line against an enemy that did not negotiate, did not retreat, and did not forgive. The Karvok Dominion. They had appeared without warning. No first contact. No diplomacy. No explanation. Just destruction. Their fleets moved like a plague, efficient, unstoppable, and terrifyingly precise. Every battle followed the same pattern. Coalition forces would engage, deploy their most advanced strategies, unleash their most devastating weapons, and still lose. Not just lose. They were erased. Ships vanished from sensors mid-battle. Entire armadas were reduced to drifting scrap in seconds. Even automated distress signals rarely had time to transmit before going silent. The Dominion didn't just win. They made sure nothing survived to tell the story. And now the Coalition was running out of time. Inside the High Council chamber, the atmosphere was suffocating. Representatives from dozens of species filled the vast circular hall, their forms shifting, flickering, or remaining rigid, depending on their biology. Some whispered urgently. Others sat in defeated silence. A few simply stared into nothing, already accepting what seemed inevitable. Extinction. A towering holographic display dominated the center of the room, an ever-shrinking map of coalition-controlled space. With each passing cycle, more sectors dimmed, turning dark as Dominion forces advanced. Another system had just fallen. No survivors. No signals. No resistance. A heavy silence settled over the chamber. Then, without warning, a new transmission cut through every channel. It wasn't from the front lines. It wasn't from a fleet. It came from a species that had barely participated in the war at all. Humans. The signal was simple. No encryption. No dramatic introduction. Just a single line. We're sending one soldier. For a moment, no one reacted. Then the chamber erupted. Is this some kind of error? One delegate snapped. One soldier. Another repeated, disbelief echoing in their voice. Against the Dominion? Is this a mockery? A third demanded. We are facing extinction, and they offer a single combatant. The High Chancellor raised a hand, but even that wasn't enough to fully quiet the room. Humans. They were new, relatively speaking, late arrivals to the galactic stage. Their technology was decent, but far from exceptional. Their fleets were small. Their presence in the war had been minimal. Not cowardly, just insignificant. They had contributed where they could, but compared to the ancient war species and hyper-advanced civilizations of the Coalition, humanity was barely a footnote. And now they were offering one soldier as a solution? It made no sense. It couldn't make sense. Before the Council could respond, another signal came through. This one wasn't a message. It was a ship. Small. Unremarkable. Drifting into Coalition space without escort, without formation, without any visible signs of military support. Sensors locked onto it immediately. No weapons detected. That statement alone triggered confusion across the chamber. No shields beyond minimal range. More murmurs. No fleet signature. No support vessels within scanning distance. The silence that followed was heavier than before, because now it didn't feel like a joke. It felt like something else. Something deliberate. Open a channel, the Chancellor ordered. The connection established instantly. The screen flickered. A human appeared. No ceremonial uniform. No intimidating presence. No visible enhancements. Just a man. Calm. Focused. Completely unshaken by the fact that he was now the center of attention for the most desperate alliance in galactic history. For a brief moment, no one spoke. Then the Chancellor leaned forward. You are aware of the situation, they said carefully. The Dominion has annihilated every force we have sent. Entire fleets gone. And yet your people send only you? The human didn't hesitate, didn't flinch, didn't even blink. Yes. That single word sent a ripple of unease through the chamber. Explain, the Chancellor demanded. The human tilted his head slightly, as if considering how much needed to be said. Then, in a calm, almost casual tone, he replied, "There's nothing to explain." A pause. And then, "You've been fighting them wrong." The chamber went completely still. No outrage. No immediate response. Just silence. Because deep down, every single being in that room had already begun to realize something they didn't want to admit. If this human was right, then everything they had done for the last 312 years had been a mistake. The Chancellor narrowed their gaze. "And you believe one soldier can succeed where entire civilizations have failed?" The human finally leaned forward slightly. For the first time, there was something different in his expression. Not arrogance. Not fear. Certainty. "No," he said. A flicker of confusion passed through the chamber. Then he finished. "I know I can." Another silence. He reached forward and activated a transmission of his own. A simple set of coordinates appeared in the center of the chamber. Dominion territory. Deep inside it. A place no coalition force had ever returned from. The human looked directly into the camera and said the words that would change the war forever. "Point me to the front." The chamber remained silent long after the transmission ended. No one moved. No one spoke. It wasn't just what the human had said, it was how he had said it. No hesitation. No doubt. No trace of the fear that had consumed every species in that room. Just certainty. And that was unsettling. "He's either delusional," one general finally muttered, "or he knows something we don't." Neither option was comforting. Within the hour, the human ship was granted docking clearance. Coalition Command didn't celebrate his arrival. There were no formal greetings, no ceremonial acknowledgement. Only scrutiny. Heavy, unrelenting scrutiny. Security forces surrounded the landing platform as the small vessel descended. Scanners flooded it from every angle, probing for hidden weapons, cloaking systems, or any form of advanced technology that might justify the confidence they had witnessed. They found nothing. The ship was ordinary. When the ramp finally lowered, tension rippled through the entire hangar. This was it, the solution. The soldier, who claimed he could succeed where entire armadas had failed. Footsteps echoed softly as he merged. Human. Male. Unarmored. No towering exosuit. No energy shielding. No visible augmentations. Not even the ceremonial battle gear worn by most coalition soldiers. Just a simple, functional combat uniform. Worn, but well-maintained. A few officers exchanged glances. "This is a mistake," one of them whispered. The human stepped forward, completely ignoring the weapons subtly aimed in his direction. His gaze moved across the hangar, not nervously, not curiously, but analytically, like he was already assessing everything. "Identify yourself," a security commander ordered. The human stopped. "Marcus Hale." "That's it," the commander pressed. Marcus gave a slight shrug. "That's enough." The response didn't help. If anything, it made the tension worse. He wasn't trying to impress anyone, wasn't trying to prove anything, which meant one of two things. He couldn't, or he didn't need to. Moments later, he was escorted directly to the war room. No delays. No accommodations. If he was going to make claims like that, he would answer for them immediately. The war room was already filled when he entered. Generals. Strategists. Survivors of battles that had wiped out entire fleets. Beings who had spent centuries studying the Dominion and still didn't understand how to defeat them. All eyes turned to Marcus as he walked in. And stopped. Because something didn't match expectations. There was no visible strain in his posture. No weight of pressure in his expression. He didn't look like someone stepping into the most hopeless war in galactic history. He looked like someone arriving late to a problem he already understood. One of the senior commanders spoke first. "You've reviewed the data?" Marcus nodded once. "Enough. Then you understand what we're facing." Another nod. "And yet," the commander continued, voice tightening, You still believe you can end this war alone? Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped closer to the central display. A massive projection of Dominion-controlled space filled the room, thousands of systems interconnected by movement patterns and attack routes. He studied it in silence. The room waited. Finally, he spoke. "You're not fighting a war," he said. A ripple of confusion spread instantly. The commander frowned. "Explain." Marcus gestured toward the display. "This," he said calmly, "isn't random. It's structured." "We know that," another officer snapped. "We've spent centuries analyzing." "You've been reacting," Marcus interrupted. The room froze. No one interrupted a coalition officer like that. No one. But Marcus didn't seem to notice, or care. "You see overwhelming force," he continued. "Unstoppable fleets. Perfect coordination." He pointed to a series of fallen systems. "I see repetition." Silence. That word hit differently. "Every major strike follows a pattern," Marcus said. "Entry point. Disruption. Total wipe. No survivors." "That's not a pattern," someone argued. "That's annihilation." "It's both," Marcus replied. "And that's the problem." He turned to face them fully now. "You've been treating them like an unpredictable enemy." A pause. "They're not." The commander narrowed their eyes. "And you've concluded this from enough data?" Marcus met their gaze. "I've concluded it because they've never needed to change." That landed harder than anything else he'd said. Because it was true. The Dominion had never adapted, never evolved their tactics, because they had never been challenged enough to need to. "They're winning," Marcus continued, "so they keep doing the same thing." Another silence. This one heavier. "So, what are you suggesting?" the commander asked slowly. Marcus looked back at the display. Then, without hesitation, he marked a sector deep within Dominion territory. A dead zone. No signals. No returns. No survivors. The worst place they could send anyone. "That's where they hit hardest," Marcus said. "Yes," the commander replied. "Every fleet we've sent there has been destroyed." Marcus nodded. "Good." The word sent a visible ripple through the room. "Good," someone repeated, disbelief clear in their voice. Marcus didn't look away from the display. "That means they're predictable." The room fell completely silent again. Because now, they were starting to understand what he was implying. Not victory, not hope, but something far more dangerous. A strategy they had never considered. The commander's voice dropped slightly. "You're asking us to send you there." Marcus finally turned back toward them. "No," he said. A brief pause. Then, "I'm telling you to." They argued for 6 hours. Not about strategy. Not about probability. But about whether they should allow him to go at all. Because once the decision was made, there would be no undoing it. "You're sending him to die," one commander said flatly. "No," another replied, quieter. "We're sending him because we're already dying." That was the truth none of them could escape. Every option they had tried had failed. Every fleet they had sent had been erased. And now, their last hope wasn't a fleet. It was a single human who claimed the enemy was predictable. That alone should have been enough to dismiss him. And yet, no one in that room could prove he was wrong. Marcus stood at the edge of the war room, silent while they debated his fate, as if he wasn't even there. He didn't interrupt, didn't argue, didn't defend himself. He just waited. Finally, the High Chancellor made the decision. "You will have no support," they said. Marcus nodded once. "Understood. No fleet will follow you." Another nod. "No extraction will be attempted." A pause. Then, "Understood." The Chancellor studied him carefully. "You realize this is a one-way deployment." Marcus met their gaze. Yes. There was no hesitation. No visible fear. And somehow that made it worse. Within the hour, preparations were complete. Or at least as complete as they could be. There were no grand launch sequences. No escort formations. No final speeches. Just a single small ship, and a destination no one had ever returned from. As Marcus approached the docking bay, one of the junior officers stepped forward. "Why are you doing this?" they asked. It wasn't a challenge. It wasn't even doubt. It was genuine confusion. Marcus stopped. For a moment, it looked like he might not answer. Then he said simply, "Because you can't." The officer frowned slightly. "That's it." Marcus glanced back toward the war room, toward the holographic map slowly being consumed by darkness. "That's enough." And with that, he boarded the ship. No countdown. No dramatic farewell. The vessel detached quietly, drifting out of the docking bay and into open space. Coalition command tracked it in silence. No one spoke as the ship crossed the defensive perimeter. No one moved as it entered the outer edges of Dominion-controlled territory. Every sensor was locked on. Every system monitoring. Waiting. The first hour passed without incident. Then 2. Then 6. And that's when it usually happened. Every previous mission, every fleet, every probe, every attempt had failed within that window. 6 hours. After that, nothing. No signals. No debris. No trace. Just absence. The command room grew quieter as the timer passed that mark. 6 hours, 12 minutes. 6 hours, 47 minutes. 7 hours. Still nothing. "He's gone," someone whispered. No one argued, because statistically, that was the only logical conclusion. And yet something didn't feel right. 8 hours.
9.
12. Still no distress signal. Still no confirmation of destruction. Just silence. For the first time in centuries, Dominion space wasn't responding the way it always had. "Keep tracking," the Chancellor ordered. Days passed. Then weeks. The ship vanished from long-range sensors, exactly as expected. But no destruction signature followed. No energy spike. No debris field. Nothing. It was as if the human had simply disappeared. And the Dominion had allowed it. Speculation spread quickly through Coalition Command. "It's a trap. They're studying him. They're waiting for us to send more." But no one acted, because for once, they didn't know what the enemy was doing. And that uncertainty was unfamiliar, uncomfortable,
Terrifying.
Then, 23 days after Marcus Hale entered Dominion space, something happened. A signal.
Weak.
Fragmented. Barely detectable. But unmistakable. Human. The entire command center snapped to attention instantly. "Source?" the Chancellor demanded. "Deep sector," an analyst replied, voice shaking slightly. Far beyond previous engagement zones. That alone made no sense. Nothing had ever penetrated that far. "Patch it through," the Chancellor ordered. Static filled the room.
Broken. Distorted.
Then, a voice.
Calm.
Controlled.
Alive.
"This is Hale." The room froze. Somewhere in the background, someone actually stepped back in disbelief. "Impossible," another whispered. The signal cracked again, struggling to stabilize. "We read you," the Chancellor said quickly. "Report." There was a pause. Not long, but long enough to feel deliberate. Then Marcus spoke again. "I found them." Silence. Every being in that room leaned forward slightly, as if the next words might redefine everything they understood. "Define found," the Chancellor said carefully. Another brief flicker of static. Then, "I'm inside." That single statement sent a shockwave through the command center. Inside. Not observing. Not hiding. Inside. Embedded within the very structure that had annihilated every force sent against it. "How?" someone demanded under their breath. But Marcus continued before anyone could ask. And when he spoke again, his tone hadn't changed. Still calm. Still steady. But now there was something else beneath it. Understanding. "They're not invincible." A pause. And then the words that changed everything. "They're just arrogant."
At first, nothing happened. The transmission ended. No follow-up signal. No detailed report. No grand explanation of how one human had infiltrated the most lethal force in the galaxy. Just silence. Again. But this time, it felt different, because now the silence wasn't empty. It was waiting. "What is he doing?" one of the strategists asked quietly. No one answered, because for the first time in 312 years, They didn't know what the next move in the war would be. And neither, it seemed, did the Dominion. It began 3 days later. A Dominion outpost, deep within their own territory, went dark. That alone wasn't unusual. Systems failed. Signals dropped. Even the Dominion wasn't immune to technical faults. But then another outpost went offline. And another. And another. Each one disconnected in rapid succession. No distress calls. No signs of attack. Just silence. Coalition analysts scrambled to make sense of it. "Is this internal failure?" one asked. "Unlikely," another replied. "Their systems are redundant beyond anything we've seen." "Then what is causing it?" No answer came, because there was only one possibility, and no one wanted to say it out loud. Then the first confirmed incident arrived. A Dominion fleet, mid-deployment, suddenly turned on itself. Not retreating. Not repositioning. Firing. Ships within the formation began targeting each other with full weapon output. Precision strikes. Direct hits. No hesitation. Within minutes, the entire fleet was reduced to wreckage. Coalition Command watched the recording in stunned silence. "That's not possible," someone said. "The Dominion doesn't make mistakes like that. They don't lose control." And yet, they just had. More reports followed. Supply lines collapsing without explanation. Command relays transmitting conflicting orders. Entire battle groups arriving at the wrong coordinates, only to find nothing there, then disappearing completely. The Dominion, perfect, unstoppable, precise, was unraveling, piece by piece, and at the center of it all was a single human. Intercepted communications began to surface. Fragments at first, then clearer signals. Dominion voices, cold, controlled, but now strained. Unauthorized override detected. Command hierarchy conflict. Identify the source. And then, one transmission that spread across Coalition Command like wildfire. Human interference confirmed. The room went completely still. They had said it. The Dominion, who had never acknowledged weakness, never admitted disruption, had named the threat. Human. "He's not attacking them," one analyst whispered. "He's dismantling them." That realization changed everything, because brute force had never worked. It had only fed the Dominion exactly what they were built to defeat. But this was something else entirely. Precision. Disruption. Control. Marcus wasn't fighting their strength. He was removing it. Panic began to spread through Dominion space. Entire sectors went dark as systems shut down preemptively, attempting to isolate whatever was causing the failures. It didn't work. The disruptions continued. Worse. They adapted. Every time the Dominion tried to reroute command structures, something intercepted it. Every time they attempted to re-establish control, something blocked it. It was like fighting an enemy they couldn't see, but that understood them completely. Coalition Command received another transmission. Stronger this time. Clearer. "Marcus, you're seeing it now," he said. "No greeting. No explanation. Just confirmation." The Chancellor stepped forward. "What are you doing?" they asked. There was a faint pause. Then, breaking their assumptions, the room remained silent, waiting for more. "They've never had to defend against infiltration," Marcus continued. "Never had to question their own systems." Another pause. So I gave them a reason to. On the display behind them, another Dominion sector flickered and went dark. No battle, no explosion, just gone. They're retreating, an analyst suddenly said. All eyes snapped to the central map. For the first time in over 3 centuries, Dominion forces were pulling back, not advancing, not attacking, retreating, system by system, formation by formation. It wasn't organized. It wasn't strategic. It was reactive, uncertain, afraid. "Is this a trap?" one commander asked. "No," the Chancellor said quietly, because they could see it now. This wasn't a calculated maneuver. This was something the Dominion had never experienced before. Loss of control. Another intercepted transmission came through. Clear. Unfiltered. Dominion command. Contain the human. All sectors prioritize elimination. This threat cannot be allowed to persist. The wording alone confirmed it. They weren't trying to win anymore. They were trying to stop him. The balance of the war had shifted. Not with a fleet. Not with a superweapon. But with understanding. The Chancellor stared at the map as another Dominion-controlled system went dark. Then another. And another. Each one like a domino falling in slow motion. 312 years of war. And it was collapsing in weeks. "Where is he now?" they asked. An analyst hesitated, then answered. "Everywhere, and somewhere deep inside Dominion territory." Marcus Hale kept moving, not as a soldier, not as an army, but as something far more dangerous. A flaw, one they couldn't remove, one they didn't understand, and one that was about to end them. The war didn't end with a battle. That was the first thing that confused everyone. After centuries of destruction, after countless final stands, desperate offensives, and last hope strategies, there was no climactic explosion, no decisive fleet engagement, no moment where the galaxy held its breath waiting to see who would survive. There was only silence. And then, a message. It came through every coalition channel at once, overriding standard protocols, bypassing encryption layers that had never been breached before. Dominion origin. That alone was enough to freeze every command center into stillness. "Put it on screen," the Chancellor ordered. No one argued. The transmission activated instantly. No distortion. No interference. Just a single line of text. "We surrender." For a moment, no one reacted. Not because they didn't understand, but because they couldn't. The Karvok Dominion didn't surrender. They didn't negotiate. They didn't acknowledge defeat. And yet, there it was. Clear. Undeniable. Real. "It's a deception," one commander said immediately. "It has to be. Prepare for counterattack scenarios." But even as they spoke, something didn't add up. There were no fleet movements, no hidden armadas emerging from deep space, no last strike forming at the edges of coalition territory. Instead, Dominion forces were shutting down, across every known sector, weapons powering off, ships going dormant, command signals ceasing entirely. It wasn't a trick. It was an ending. Coalition fleets advanced cautiously, every movement calculated, every sensor alert active. They expected resistance, ambush, something. But there was nothing. System after system, they moved deeper into Dominion territory and found only silence, not destruction, Not chaos, just stillness, as if the war had simply stopped existing. When they reached the Dominion capital world, the tension reached its peak. This was it. If there was any final act, any hidden defense, any last attempt to reclaim control, this would be where it happened. Dropships descended slowly through the planet's atmosphere. Weapons armed. Shields ready. Every soldier prepared for the worst. They landed without resistance. The capital city stretched out before them, massive, alien, untouched by the destruction that had consumed so much of the galaxy, and completely inactive. No movement, no signals, no defense. Advance, the commander ordered. Squads moved through the silent streets, every step echoing louder than it should have. Doors were open. Systems were still running, but idle. It was as if the entire civilization had simply stopped. Central command structure located. A voice reported over comms. All units converged. The structure was enormous, clearly the heart of Dominion operations. If there were answers, they would be inside. The doors opened without resistance. And there, at the center of the chamber, was a single figure, human, standing alone. Marcus Hale. For a moment, no one moved. No one spoke. Because somehow, he didn't look like a man who had just ended a 312-year war. He looked tired, not broken, not injured, just finished. The commander stepped forward slowly. "Is it over?" they asked. Marcus didn't turn immediately. He was looking at something beyond the main console, something only he could see on the data streams still flickering across the room. Then he spoke. Yes. One word. Calm. Certain. Final. "What did you do?" another officer asked, unable to hold back. That question hung in the air, because everyone wanted the answer. Everyone needed to understand how something like this had happened. Marcus finally turned to face them. There was no pride in his expression, no triumph, just clarity. "I didn't fight them," he said. The room stayed silent, waiting. "I made them fight themselves." Confusion flickered across several faces. So he explained. Not in detail, not in technical terms, just enough. "They built everything on control," Marcus said. "Perfect coordination, perfect response." He gestured slightly toward the surrounding systems. "So I broke it." "How?" the commander asked. Marcus paused, then answered simply. "I gave them doubt. That was it. No grand weapon, no secret technology, no impossible power, just a single, devastating truth. The Dominion had never needed to question anything, so when they finally did, everything collapsed. Years later, historians would try to explain it. They would write about strategy, psychological warfare, infiltration techniques. They would analyze every fragment of data, every disrupted system, every failed command chain. They would try to turn it into something replicable, understandable, safe. But they would never fully succeed, because the truth was simpler than any of them wanted to admit. The most powerful force in the galaxy wasn't technology, wasn't numbers, wasn't strength. It was a single human who understood his enemy better than they understood themselves. As Marcus walked past the coalition soldiers, past the beings who had once commanded entire fleets, no one stopped him. No one questioned him, because there was nothing left to ask. The war was over, not with a victory cry, not with destruction, but with a realization. And as the Dominion faded into history, one fact remained, impossible to ignore. They had faced entire civilizations, and won. But in the end, they faced one human, and lost.